Okay, so we missed the beginning, and this is Nancy Turner, and she is an ethnobotanist from UVic. She, her whole life she was. As one of my students said, she's a legend, and I studied with her personally. She used to teach in my school, and she was an amazing influence for me. And as I was saying earlier, she had such a deep love. I've ne had never met anybody who had such an embodied love of plants. And she, as she explained to me on another interview on Monday, she started at age 2 at least, and kept that going, and then went, became an ethnobotanist, all that stuff. But so this is the Earthsong Elder Transmission, and so I want Nancy to transmit her love. And I know this is a new media, but it's one way they can reach a lot of people is through the internet. And so, Nancy, I was asking you, what have you distilled and what would you share with others around your life?
What comes to mind immediately, Don, is all the wonderful people who've been my friends and teachers over so many years, including my own family members, but also people like naturalist Freeman King when I was a kid in Victoria and with the Junior Natural History Society
Oh,
bringing us out into the woods. I still keep in touch with a lot of the kids. We were kids at the time, and a lot
I
of
get
us
goosebumps.
grew up into being in biology or natural history in some way or other, because of that influence of this one person, Freeman King. And then after a short while, when I started studying ethnobotany as a field, when I was in undergraduate at university, I started meeting these amazing elders, knowledge keepers, we call them, from different First Nations, starting with Christopher Paul out at Sartlip. And he was growing camas bulbs and he loved plants and was willing to teach me. And I would go out there with a armload of plants and we'd talk about them every week for a long time. So he was the beginning. There were many others, the Harrys and others of that time from Saanich and Cowichan. And then later on, when I started working on my graduate work, going up to Haida Gwaii, and Bob and I, after we were married, we were married in 69. Chris Paul came to our wedding, so we had this close relationship from there. And Bob and I went to Haida Gwaii for the summer and we stayed with Nani Florence Davidson in Masset. And just we stayed with her and just being with her and knowing her relationship with the Haida plants and her knowledge of them, working with Chief Wea, um, Willie Matthews, and other elders from that time in Haida Gwaii, and then going to Bella Coola and working with Dr. Margaret Sywallis from the Newhalk Nation and Felicity Wakas and some of the other Newhalk elders, being out with them out in the bush and sitting and eating our picnic and picking berries together. All those things just enforce that love of plants over and over again. And to be with people who shared such a love was like a huge, um, it was just a huge privilege for me.
I know, I mean, I have an intimate relationship with Ellen White. Her and Doug White did a wedding ceremony for me and Sandy 38 years ago. But I'll talk about that later. But what I want to say is like, and you've had this experience even more than me, but when they teach you a plant, like all that transmission comes through, like it's indescribable how they bring you to the place because this is they're indigenous and there's something unspeakable that you can't put it into words. It's just and it stays with you forever. Like it's like and another reason I chose you to be my first elder transmission is because you and I grew up around the same plants, the cedars, the madrone, the arbutus, the devil's club. So
Yeah, I'm
anyways,
here.
back to you. So yeah, so aside from elders, I mean, what I'm trying to establish is, and basically Earthsong is devoted and dedicated to Ellen White because Ellen taught us that we're researchers. We're always researchers, but researchers in all ways. I mean, Ellen wrote down the language. She got an honor doctorate, so she was, you know, really intellectual and but very deeply spiritual. So her thing with researching was researching directly with the plants, like being with the plants, letting the plants talk to us. And so Earth Song's about teaching people how to what I call attune to plants. And that begins with a simple hello. But nonetheless, so I'm going back to you about the plants. What plants did they introduce you to? Which plants really impacted you?
Well, oh gosh, so many. And I can almost name them all in
Go
different
ahead.
languages. Yes, but I guess one that comes to mind right away is the sarviceberry or Saskatoon berry. We called it sarviceberry when I was a kid in Montana, and serviceberry. Robin Wall Kimmer has written a book called Serviceberry about that berry. And of course, the city of Saskatoon is named after that bush because the Cree women were selling those berries when they were setting up the city and going through the streets calling out, Miss Saskatoomina, Miss Saskatoomina. And they decided that's a beautiful word. We'll name our city Saskatoon. So I've eaten Saskatoon berry pie in Saskatoon, and it kind of brings everything together, the culture and our own lives. The bushes themselves, when I went out with Sam Mitchell, brings back so many memories. The Slatlimuch and Tlakatmuch people, the interior Salish people, have names and they recognize four or five or six or seven different varieties of Saskatoon berries.
Neat.
And Jockum, they call them Sluckum or Jockum. And there's Sluckum Oi, which is the real Saskatoon. There's a little one called Spakpak that has little white hairs on the end of it. White, it means. There's Knock Knock Oksha, that's the rotten Saskatoon. There's and several others, the red Saskatoon, and they all have different ways of picking them, different places where they grow, different ways of preparing them. But on top of the berries, which they make into dried berry cakes for winter, and they're such an important food for everything. But the long withes, the thin branches of the Saskatoon are also used for binding and tying, and they make arrows and digging sticks from the wood because it's very hard. And it's a beautiful plant. The leaves turn yellow in the fall. Um, just everything about it. It just makes you want to, you know,
Mhm.
hug it.
Hug it. Yes. 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 Please hug your plants. They want to be hugged.
Think about you mentioned Devil's Club, and of course that's one that has great meaning for me as well because I would go out there. It's such a valued plant as a medicine, and I learned that from so many different elders. But like going out with Margaret Sywellis, for example, and getting Devil's Club with her was a pretty amazing experience in learning how to talk to the plant before you harvest it, ask for its help. and then processing it and getting the spines off without getting them in your fingers. And um, it has spiritual protection value everywhere, because maybe because it's such a spiny plant, but I know everywhere I go up and down the coast, people have such a reverence for that plant. And it has, um, I guess from my book Plants of Haida the Devil's Club man, there's a picture there, um, made by Ron Wilson of my the brother of my dear friend Keeljuice, Barbara Wilson, um, of Devil's Club man as a person. And there's always that background of these are people too. They have different forms, but they're like us. And they need to be appreciated. They need to be taught to. They need to be asked permission. All of these things. I think of Mary Thomas, my dear friend from the Secwepemc Nation, and she remembered from when she was a girl, her little granny going through the woods, talking to all the plants as if they were humans, greeting them all, just walking through the woods. And people were thinking she was a little nuts, but no, she was relating to them at that level. And Mary herself, when she'd go to get medicine, I have a beautiful picture of her talking to a red osier dogwood or red willow bush, asking for its help to get the inner bark to heal the sore on her grandson's shoulder, and just thanking the bush for its help. Those are the memories that I have from so many different places of so many elders, and learning from them that relationship over and over again. The importance of the yew tree, um, the Yellow Cedar Sisters story that Alice Paul told about the three young women who were sisters who got scared when Raven imitated an owl, and they ran up on the mountain and they made themselves into trees, the yellow cedar trees, which is why yellow cedars live halfway up the mountains on the west coast of Vancouver Island from that story. So all of those things, I'm rambling a bit, but
Mm.
all of
Yeah,
it's been
ramble away. No, it's beautiful. No, you're transmitting it. I can feel the love. I can feel your respect. I can feel, and again, it's something you have to experience to know. It's amazing. But I think that's something that we can share somewhat. So it sounds like I want people to say hello to all the plants. Hello to the plants in your boulevard. Hello to the plants in your coffee shop. Hello to your coffee. Hello to your potato. Like, just honor, respect plants. I
hello
won't
to
go on.
the ayahuasca plant in my window.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Um,
One of my pets.
Here, I'll show you my pet because I'm a natural coffee lover.
Oh, yes.
I have a coffee
Beautiful.
bush.
Oh, that's beautiful.
So every
So,
morning I put it on my lap and drink my coffee and we talk. And actually, that's how I got the interview question this morning. It said, no, you want to just find out what she wants to share. That's the most important thing. Because, we are mortal and we will, just like all our elders have passed on, we will too. So I'm really wanting to preserve as much as I can the relationship you had with plants. And so, um, oh, keep going. Yeah, just keep rambling.
well, while we're showing other plants, I've got Cy here. This is our baby cycad. We have another cycad in the other room that we've had since we were graduate students at UBC back in the early 70s. And Cy is still with us at our window, still a part of our family. So yeah,
Yeah.
we have plants everywhere that we just treasure.
Yeah,
and
and
we miss them.
house plants are really important. Like they're family, you know. Like I take mine to my office with me, and I take sometimes I take and set it by my bedside. You know, like they've become friends. But before I started doing Hello and doing Earth Song, I didn't respect houseplants as much as I do now. Because I was into all the wild plants and all the, big oaks and but then all of a sudden I realized no, these are also beings and they represent, like coffee's been here for 10 million years, like and 92 billion cups of coffee are drank every day. So this plant has a influence out in the world, right? As an example.
Absolutely. These plants have so much history of human relationships, so
Yes.
many of them going way back, and that makes them even more interesting, one could say, um, because they combine that knowledge of culture and um, human life with the plants and with their habitats, with the forests, and the way humans have cared for them over so many, sometimes thousands of years,
Like the
um,
camas.
like the camas, or even the wheat or the corn that we take for granted out in the fields, but those are such special plants too, each and every one of them. Yeah.
Makes me think, just when you're saying that, it just makes me think of back to the Indigenous elders, that the stories that are thousands of years old that came along with those teachings that they shared with us. So when they were talking about the plant, it was such a massive history behind it, like because they were, they didn't have drugstores, and also a lot of them, Ellen would, she'd say funny, she'd say, well, you had two ways to heal. You could go get an herb or you could sing a song, and they'll say, well, which one did you do? Well, we sang the song first, of course. Oh, because that was more powerful? No, no, it was a lot easier. Their sense of humor, right?
You know,
Yes,
you've
I
got
know. That's amazing. It's so funny when you first sent it to me. I didn't know you were connected to Ellen, and I knew you had so many other teachers that I didn't click on the thing. But then my dear friend Stan Tamendel sent me a link this morning and said, hey, this is Nancy's new book. And I sent a link back saying, yeah, interviewing her this morning. And I chose you before I, knew that. But I really, like I said, I'm dedicating it to Ellen for two reasons. One is that transmission, that living transmission, and two, the researchers. I want to see if I can get people around the globe attuning to plants and sharing what they're learning so there be kind of be a collective thing. I'm not going to go on my thing. I want more of you. This is your time. So so Devil's Club, um, Saskatoon. I love the story. I was born in Assiniboia, Saskatchewan. I came out here early, but we actually lived in Saskatoon for a little while. So again a thing about the cultural around the plant, not just the plant, but the whole culture built around it.
hmm
Saskatoona.
Yeah, and the giving part that Robin Kimmerer presents so well, how plants have so much to give us, and other Indigenous authors and scholars have also written about that and talked about that a lot, about the generosity of plants, how plants they have so much themselves, they have the capability of capturing the energy from the sun and making it into their food. But they also share that with all of us animals and the fungi and everything. They're the ones that they're the underpinnings of life on Earth,
They
starting
are.
from the tiny little one-celled creatures that photosynthesize, as they say. They can eat light. That's what Wade Davis says. They can eat light.
I call them
Which,
light eaters. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
I'll do it really quickly. There was an experiment in Switzerland where they were analyzing how herbs heal, and it was very sophisticated. And it was one of the ways that it did was actually transmitting light. They actually when they ingest it into the body, they release light at certain places. I thought that was beautiful. Light eaters, right? So, and yeah,
Yeah.
I was blown away when I learned that all that I see in this big, huge oak tree actually comes from the air. It comes from the invisible. They take the carbon out of the air and create, like you said, everything. Food, flowers, perfumes, essential oils. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm going deep into the study of carbon and the fact that everything in my body is functioning because of carbon, every single cell and almost all the communication molecules, etc. So when we commune with plants, we're not we're it's a I don't know if you're familiar with Francis Varela and Maturana, two Chilean biologists. But in my master's degree, we learned about them, and they have a thing called structural coupling. So the human being is always in a state of structural coupling. We're always in a state of becoming. Every second, we're being created by our environment, by what we eat, what we think, what we see. And I love that. So I think as you were saying about the healing property of the plants, I think just hanging out with them does, you don't even have to ingest them sometimes. I mean, it just
So
being with them,
just
hugging your
being with,
Saskatoon berry.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And drinking tea, yerba buena tea, or any of those things are ways of connecting and the ways that plants have of giving to us. And I guess the biggest lesson, I think if I had to convey a big lesson to the world, it would be we have to give back. We're so good at taking, we humans. We take, take, take all the time. And we have to learn to give back. And that means giving back to the earth, giving back to the plants that nurture us with gratitude, but also with real ways of caring for them and maintaining them and just loving them, I
Protecting
guess.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Loving them. Yeah. I mean, that's relationship. Yeah. Like, I'm trying to get away from the extractive culture. I mean, it'll always be somewhat of an extractive thing because we need food, we need medicine, but they're way more than that. They're sentient beings who have, like, how do you feel about what's your stance on communicating with plants? Have you been taught? What have you sort of garnered yourself? How do you feel like we communicate with plants? Can we communicate with plants?
I think it's more of a spirit communication because you can touch the plants, you can think the plants. I guess that's it. You have to communicate through thought because plants can't speak. We can speak. I can speak to Cycad here. Hey, Cy, nice to see you. But I think maybe Cy would react more to my just sending signals of love without having to talk about it. It's hard to put into words, really,
Yeah, it
because
is. It
it's
is.
so ethereal or so abstract in a way, but yet it's real. Does that make any sense?
Oh no, totally no complete. You're speaking to somebody in this, completely into the spirit world and plants having a spirit. So that's beautiful, just the way you modeled that. Because, like when I say hello to a plant, you don't have to say it out loud. You just say it
No.
in your mind. And now when I drive this city, I just say hello to all the plants. And ultimately, I'm saying hello to all of them, which in some traditions they call Sophia is one of the words they use for all of nature. So
Mm.
sometimes when I start saying hello, I'm saying hello to individual plants, but then eventually I'm just allowing myself to be connected to all of this nature. Like you said, it's what is life. We don't have a life without it. I mean, there is no life without plants, period,
No, absolutely
at
not.
all.
They're at the center of the web of life,
Totally.
really.
Really. I mean,
Everything
it's not
radiates.
rocket science. I mean, they
No,
make everything out of, like you said, they make it out of the air and photosynthesis, and it's magic. I love what you said when on Monday we said we have the very similar chromosomes, and apparently at some point we divided a little bit, but our makeup, our DNA is very, very similar. So that's, I
right.
also had a dream last night, and I won't go into the details, but I love interstellar communication. I think about it. So I'm trying to promote interspecies communication because I believe we can. Dorothy McLean, do you know Dorothy from Findhorn? She was
I
one of
know
the
the
founders.
name.
Yeah, well, I studied with her too a number of times, and she was obviously really into plant devas, and she taught us that the trees are sad because we don't say hello to them anymore. They don't know why we stopped communicating. Like we used to always, like you said, you go around your island, good morning, hello, like greeting everybody. And that's the way they used to. Like you said, you knew plants at a very young age, and that was like Ellen said, often everybody knew the plants, but the shaman knew the special powers of the plants. But everybody knew the plants, of course, they're
Yeah, this
relatives.
part of it's like being in your house or your bedroom, you know those things out there because that's where life is out there. And I feel sorry for people who have to are confined to a house or a room because being outside is one of the greatest privileges of all.
Yeah, I know.
And to really get a feel, sometimes people ask me, well, how do you, if you feel depressed, what can you do? And I say, go outside on a night when the stars are out and just look up. See the Milky Way. See all the stars. Maybe see a shooting star or two come. And just be and think, isn't this a miracle? Isn't this amazing to be one small speck in this just amazing universe? And that's somehow comforting. At least it is to me. And I hope it is for others too.
Yes, and I often tell people if you need a miracle, just look at yourself. Your
That's
billions of cells put together, creating this thing that talks, thinks, feels, moves, communicates, builds, creates.
yeah,
It's magic. And then yeah, I love imbuing the plants and thinking that they become part of me. So when I used to do sweat lodges, we used to go and gather all the herbs in the area around us and make a tea before we went to the sweat. And then we drink the tea to imbibe the environment around us. So when we enter the sweat, we would have all the different licorice fern root, the Oregon grape, whatever, we'd have them all in the tea. And then that would be in our cells. So we cellularly become the plants.
nice. Nice. That's a really good tradition to do. Yeah. And when we eat plants, I mean, we often are not thinking about what we're eating or the food or where it comes from or anything, but it's important to recognize that they're giving themselves to us so we can keep our energy levels up and we can keep ourselves healthy.
Totally, totally.
So we have to give back in any ways that we can.
Well, that's one of the reasons I stayed in the field of working because I felt like, well, can do I want to go higher? Do I want to still try to contribute something? So I decided to try to contribute something. And I'm pleased that there are the student that told me that you were a legend. She studied with 25 years ago, but it really put her on that path of plants. And now she's got a doctorate in agroecology, and she works at University in Vermont. And now I'm plugging into that group of people, and they're really positive. They're using the new technology to create all kinds of interfaces like seed saving. So they have in Thailand, they have all the soybeans, but not only that, they have all the recipes from the grandmothers of the soybeans because there are hundreds of varieties of soybeans, and each soybean is used by a certain family to, just like your Saskatoon berry, they have all these different soybeans. So you're creating these apps that can document this information. So I'm creating an app that can document experiences that people have with plants. And do we, if there's enough of us doing it, are we starting to get the same message? And the last thing is I'm inviting the plants into the process. And I literally had a dream about my oak tree coming and visiting me in my dream and transmitting it. I never had this before, but transmitted through electricity. And I know that's part of the scientific measurement they have with plants is they give off some kind of energy. So anyways. Back to you. So, Nancy, you shared so much and you shared very beautiful stuff. And again, it's your spirit that is so vitally important. And so thank you so much for doing this, for sharing yourself. And you've always been generous as a person, you know. And I think that's you're a plant yourself. You generously give, you know,
That's the biggest compliment you could give me. Thank you.
well, it's true. Um, oh yeah, I guess just maybe you just want to put this out in a little bit about my experience with Ellen because I don't know if you know it, but I was at the Order of Canada with her and the Order of BC. And when I was at the Order of BC with her family and her daughter Carol leaned over me and said, "You know, Don." You know our mother in a way we don't know her. You know her spiritually. We know the physical woman, but she's our mother, but you have a spiritual connection to her. And the other thing, I don't know if you know this, but I was dating a person who knew Ellen, and she introduced me to Ellen, and that was in the early 1980s. And I invited Ellen to come out and teach. She had not been doing it. And so Carol attributes my bringing Ellen. Ellen is Ellen. Ellen, just like many of the teachers you study with, they're amazing people. I didn't put anything in Ellen, but I invited Ellen out. And then Ellen, you know, bless her soul, at the Order of Canada, she said, I'm saying the same thing. You got to work together. The white people and the indigenous people, you need to work together. You can't be separate. It has to be. And so you've had that privilege of being non-native and being taught, you know. And so I had the same privilege. So I guess that would be one last question I have for you, because it's a very personal question, but we're elders now, but we don't have the same cultural paradigm around eldership that the native
Mm.
people do.
No,
How do you feel
no.
about that?
Well, I guess the relationship is there, and I don't know if this answers the question at all, but I think have sharing a mutual love of plants gives us that connection. And I never would pretend to be Indigenous, although I've been adopted into a few families up in different places, and I treasure those connections to the families that are now my families too.
Yeah,
But
Ellen adopted me into her family too, so yeah.
none of us can be anything but who we are and have the background that we have, and we have to learn about that. We have to learn about our ancestors if we can, where we come from, what they were like. And just find ways of connecting with other people, in this case with Indigenous knowledge keepers and elders, um, in ways that are mutually beneficial, and always give as much as you possibly can back. You never just take. I can hear the elders say that. You don't just take. You have to give back in any way you can. So the way I've tried to give back is by recording people saying the names of plants and then making sure that they get back into the communities so that the kids can learn them, even if the elders have passed on. They can still hear their voices and still hear them talking about the plants. And
Fantastic.
so um it's been a real privilege and an honor in some ways to serve as a link across generations at a time when in the 70s, the impacts of the residential school system and
Anyways, I'm going, Nancy, we're going to end in 1 minute because my
oh, okay.
Zoom's going to stop. So, and you ended on such an incredible note. Going back, one of the things that we can go back to our own lineage, we're all indigenous from somewhere. So going back into our own history too, and the plants that we love. Thank you, thank you. I'm sorry to abruptly, but we got 1 minute left. So,
Quite
I,
all right, John.
what do you, I say
It's
Haishka. What do you say?
HCM, HCM.
HQCM. Yeah.
How there are many ways of saying thank you in many different
Yeah.
languages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, my heart goes, Haishka. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you so much.
Thank you, John. Thank you. It's lovely to have you as my friend.
You too. I'll end there.
Okay.